Well, here we go after a Broncos win. That's kind of rare. That's something we're not used to, but it just happened, and I am here to talk about it. It is Postgame Live. Cecil Lammey talking about those Denver Broncos. Let's get this thing going, huh? So, how are you supposed to feel after this game if you're the Denver Broncos, right? If you're a Broncos fan, how do you feel? Figure out this thing and figure out what exactly happened for the Denver Broncos as they win over the Green Bay Packers. 19-17 final score. Forget that tank. You can forget that tank because the Broncos are now 2-5 entering the day, especially after the Chicago Bears getting it done. Like, okay. Well, that background music is terrible. Acoustic cinematic. That's not exactly the theme we're going for today. It is Denver Sports Post Game Live. I am Cecil Lammey, and I'm here to talk about the Denver Broncos and what's going on with this team. And, well, how do you feel about this win? Let me adjust my lighting and talk about it because it's a win, and you should feel good. Do you feel good? And I want to know in the chat room because that's really what it's all about with this team. And how did they do it? Looks like they're featuring Cortland Sutton, or at least look like Sutton came through, especially early on in this contest. Of course, we saw them run the ball a little bit more, still not as much as they should, in my opinion, but they get it done. 19-17 is the final score. The Broncos are 2-5. They avoid going 0-4 at home for the first time in team history. So you won, but at what cost? At what cost did you win? Again, here to talk about all of that. Want to interact with you because do we really need to go through the box score and what Jerry Jeudy did? Do we really need to talk about Samaje Perine keeping plays alive as a receiver, having his pads, pulled, jersey pulled over the pads? Like, do we really need to talk about that, or is it more big picture with this? Now, there was a graphic that came up at the end of the game. I'll go ahead and pull it up myself. I'm going to tweet out this a little bit later, probably right about it, Mile High Monday. Don't you get too carried away. Don't you do it. I know that of course, they couldn't help themselves by putting up this graphic that since 1990 teams to start 1-5 and make the playoffs. Well, forget that. It's not 1-5. It's 2-5. But this win today, is that leading to something? Kansas City did it in 2015. Indianapolis did it in 2018. Washington did it in 2020 with the final record of 7-9, by the way. So is hope still alive, or are we going to be talking about a lot of the draft? I was out at Twin Peaks in Broomfield. Shout out Twin Peaks before the game. And I got to tell you, not many people wanted them to lose. So, maybe I'm in the minority or the discussion is different than what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? Like maybe that discussion is different because fans just want to win. You want to feel good. You want to win. You did win. But how do you feel now knowing that you had the number 2 pick? You had Drake May basically today, and you might have let that go. Now, I'm always of the opinion if you want a guy, you can go get a guy. You can move up. You can get people, all these sorts of things. Like, what exactly happened? Besides, Green Bay's not real good, and Denver's not much better than that. That's one thing we can take away. But I know where I was at today in watching this contest for at least half of the game. I left at halftime. Nobody wanted the Broncos to lose. None of the Broncos fans that I talked to were like, let's go. I hope we lose this thing. Like, and during the game, during the contest, y'all were like over the moon, super excited, not like moaning when you actually did something good. And Green Bay is not good. Jordan Love is not a good quarterback. But you definitely see like, okay, the Broncos can do that against a bad team. So your 2 wins are against 2 really bad teams. Okay, well, what does that mean? Again, I'm more in big picture mode, but if y'all are happy and y'all got the win, I'm not going to tell y'all how to fan and be like, oh, you shouldn't be happy they won. No, they won. But again, at what cost? Did you learn much today? I learned that Cortland Sutton has heart, but I didn't need to learn that because I already knew that. I learned that Jerry Jeudy could catch everything thrown his way, but it took him a little while to get going. Like, Javante almost with 100 yards. They don't have a 100-yard rusher. It's week 7. They don't have a 100-yard rusher this season. 9 yards to carry for Jaleel McLaughlin. That sounds about right. Like, Russell Wilson safer with the football. It was the turnover differential, and they specifically showed the number. I believe it was up about halftime. Russ last week against Kansas City, Russ this week against Green Bay. Numbers similar. It was just the fact that he didn't have those turnovers. So turnovers didn't crush this team. No fumbles, no INTs. Of course, intercepting Jordan Love was one. PJ Locke getting in there with Kareem Jackson. A couple of interesting calls in this one. So, a couple of ref issues, couple of things that made you kind of scratch your head. And Pat Surtain caught interception in the end zone that was called a touchdown for Green Bay. Whatever. Okay. Good teams don't complain about bad officials. I'm just saying this was a different game, kind of an odd game, and kind of an ugly game. I guess, as I said before the start of the season, and I was saying, hey, Broncos fans, you're going to win ugly, so get ready for that. Well, they won ugly today, so I'm not going to complain about that. It's like they're winning ugly. No, they won. They barely do that. So, yeah, they won ugly today. It's kind of what they're going to do. But what did you learn? I learned, Adam Troutman's not a weapon. Of course, I didn't need to learn that because I already knew that. Learned they don't play Marvin Mims enough, but I didn't need to learn that because I already knew that. So, again, you beat a really bad team. Okay. But did you learn that, did you learn that you can win a close game? Sure, I guess. Is this sign that the defense is taking more strides forward? I guess I don't really feel that way. At least I don't feel sick. Here's the problem with when I was going to hurtle into this wastebasket. As you can see, it's a basketball hoop. So, last week after Kansas City, when I was physically ill because of this team, I was like, well, I don't want to hurl in that because that wouldn't be a good thing. So, I mean, I'm not sick today. You're not sick today. You won. So how do you feel about that win? Against the chat room is where you could chime in because that's really what the conversation's about. Again, not real thrilled with what Green Bay does. Mainly because of their young quarterback. You see on the ground, it was still over 100 yards as a team, but it was only 61 yards for A.J. Dillon, only 35 yards for Aaron Jones, who, of course, is back for his first week. And then the leading receiver also for Green Bay was A.J. Dillon, their big-bodied power back. So, is this signs that the defense is adjusting or gelling or getting better? Ask Alex Singleton on that tackle that he missed on Dillon that got Green Bay into field goal range, and then penalties moved them back out of it. Okay, and that led to the PJ Locke interception. So I feel really good for PJ. That's a young player. The Kareem Jackson hit. It's just who he is. There's part of me that wants to be annoyed by it and be like, come on, Kareem, you know better than this. And I didn't know you could get thrown out for an accumulation of what you've done this year. I guess you can, because NFL officials are above the law. I guess that's the way you can do it. But that was odd when Kareem gets tossed. Yes, flagged. Yes, penalized. Yes, he will be fined. But to get tossed in that game was curious. But on the flip side of that, allowing PJ Locke to play, would Kareem Jackson have made that play? No, he wouldn't have had the speed to get there. As much as we all love Kareem and he's the hardest hitter and whatever, he's not fast anymore. So would he have been able to do what PJ Locke did? No. Locke got over there. Locke got his hands. First career interception for PJ Locke. So I feel really good, and probably would have been incomplete anyway, although Simmons had his back turned. Love throws it up. But again, Love just doesn't have a lot of control on his passes. A lot of fluttering for a guy who has a somewhat strong arm. I wouldn't describe it as a rocket necessarily. And I remember him at the Senior Bowl where Justin Herbert was, and Steven Montez looked better than Jordan Love. Jalen Hurts was at that Senior Bowl too, if memory serves. But had some struggles, learned behind Aaron Rodgers, still has some struggles. So again, I feel conflicted. Okay. Now that's just me. I'm not a Broncos fan, but I love y'all because Broncos country is my family and I love my family. So it's like, how do you feel? How are you feeling after this win? And well, how should you feel after this win? Because it feels good to win. It feels good not to be sick to my stomach over this Broncos team. And yes, we can identify and say you had the number 2 pick. Um, as I was driving home today, I'd felt like, well, who's making the pick? We can be upset if the Broncos win this game, which again is weird. And I don't like talking like this. I don't like it. I don't feel comfortable. I don't think it's the way you should be. But also in observing this team, they're really going nowhere with this collection of players. You need massive changes. Those changes will include trades. Hopefully, before the trade deadline, I don't exactly know what they're waiting for with Jerry Jeudy. Marvin Mims could have easily done the 5 for 45 or whatever Jerry Jeudy had. Like Mims could do that. Hell, Brandon Johnson could do that. And there's nothing that Jerry Jeudy does that is so exclusive that you can say he's the only guy on our team that can do that. Nah, you got a bunch of guys that can do what Jerry Jeudy does, and they're not as much of a headache. So this collection, this assembly of talent, it's not like a couple things here and there, and then you're right there. It's massive changes need to happen. So you beat Green Bay again. Good? Question mark. So let's get to the chat room, whereas you're going to react, and I'll react to what you're saying. So join me in participating in this program. It is Denver Sports Postgame Live. Andy says, "Yay, worst draft pick, so stuck in purgatory." Brandon has said, "We got to win." Yeah, okay, you got to win. Cease, what up, dude? I'm Cease. You're Dom. Hi, Dom. So yeah, Swink, I think, puts the way that I feel. It's like I don't feel good for some reason. I feel like I should. I feel like Broncos fans, again, where I was at, didn't want this team to lose, and now they can't even tank. Yeah, make it look good, but still lose in the end. Well, enter Jordan Love, everybody, and the Green Bay Packers, who are not so very good. And of course, they lose players during this game. And that's something you look at. Okay, why couldn't you pick more on a secondary that didn't have Alexander out there? Defensive front lost the Georgia kid, but like you had opportunities for the Broncos to do more and you didn't. So again, like, do you feel better about the defense? Maybe you do. Okay, and if that's the way you feel, one, I think Kansas City was messing with you, so they didn't have to put their foot on the gas. If they wanted to next week, they could beat the Broncos by 30. That's just my opinion. Could totally be wrong. So, yeah, okay, we have to take what they've done over the last couple of weeks as a collective. Like the defense, it has better numbers. They're still 32nd in the league. And even if you take out the Miami debacle, they're 31st in the league when it comes to most important defensive numbers. And okay, you did it against Jordan Love, who's not real good. Like Aaron Jones, a little bit banged up, whatever. He's got of the players, lots of talent, but inexperienced players like a Romeo Dobbs, Luke Musgrave, rookie and second year players, respectively, a Jaden Reed, a young player there as well. So, you look at Green Bay and what they do overall, it's like, all right, there's some talent there, but it's inexperienced talent to be sure. So you beat a team that's not good, that can't really score, can't really move the ball, really struggles early on. They are not a fast starting team whatsoever. The Broncos on the flip side usually are, and you see it at halftime, of course, 9-0. Should have been more, could have been more. Had penalties call back the Javonte Williams touchdown in the first quarter, I believe it was. So you had some problems, some hiccups there. So you win, but how does that win make you feel? Again, it's October. I don't necessarily want to talk about the draft. I told y'all I'm starting in November on my draft research that I usually start in December, and I've got a schedule. And it's a little annoying that I have to start a bit earlier, but this team is that bad, Jason. It's an absolute miracle. And yeah, there's so many 2-win teams, and that's the thing. Like, you're kind of stuck in this cluster, and how does it work out? You entered today with the number 2 overall pick. You could play out the season, win a couple more games, have 4 or 5 wins at the end of the year, and be picking 10th. There's a lot of have-nots in today's league. So who's making the picks and who will be the guy that they they choose out there. Josh says it. The franchise always pulls out a pointless win or two every year and ruins it. Reminds me of 2017 when Brock Osweiler just had to beat the Colts. And the Colts ended up with the number 3 pick. Broncos ended up with number 5. Colts moved back, of course. And then the Broncos took Bradley Chubb there anyway. So there you go. Aaron says, move from my mom's basement. Aaron, I don't want to be morbid, but my mother passed away in 2017. And this is my house and my office. So I don't know what move from your mom's basement means, but you're an aloha. So thanks for bringing that up, Aaron. Real good guy. Back on track from jerks in the chat room. Please call that guy out for the love of God. We're here to talk about the Broncos, not to like move out of your mom's basement, you big nerd loser. Like, no, Aaron, you're in fact the loser. Ryan says, what are we doing? Exactly. What are we doing? What are you doing? What is the larger point? Can you make a run? And I would say, I don't want to play the what if game, but this is what you have to do. Like, if you had beaten the Raiders and if you'd beaten the Commanders and you were in a better position, and obviously we'd be having different conversations, but you would feel better about making a playoff run, making a postseason run. You would feel better about that had you taken care of business when you should have. Had you seen more from Sean Payton allowing Russell Wilson to run more of his offense. Now, Roport here says a win feels good. See, so I know there's a debate, like which side of it are you on? Do you feel good about this win? Which honestly you should. But then you look to the other side and say, well, you have an opportunity to make a play for one of those guys, Drake May, Caleb Williams, then you make that play. Brian, media critic, says, forget the tank. What other games will the Broncos win this season? Well, there may not be many. Coco's like, I'm glad they won at home. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, not winning at home, there used to be magic here. I think the magic can return, but it won't return with Russell Wilson. So, again, not to play the what if game, but you look at the situation, you say, okay, how do you get better and get something out of this when Sean Payton still doesn't seem to trust Russell Wilson? Now, I haven't watched the coaches tape yet. Obviously, it's not out yet. Although on Exos it would be. But anyway, in going through the coaches tape, you see that Sean Payton does not run his offense. There's no sail concepts here. There's barely any usage of shifts and motions the way that other teams are, San Francisco, Miami specifically. So there's not any sort of innovation there. When Sean Payton does scheme guys open, Russell Wilson either can't see him, gets the pass batted at the line of scrimmage, or, makes a bad throw or takes off to run. Like, Russ's game is about improvisation. Sean Payton's wants your game to be about precision and timing and on the money timing. That's what Sean Payton wants. Russell Wilson's game is about chaos. Sean Payton wants order and structure, and he doesn't necessarily get that. And it seemed like over the last couple of games specifically, and again, I haven't watched the coaches tape, so I'll have to watch this game to see if anything's different. But just from the TV copy and then listening on the radio on the way home, like, I don't think you're seeing much trust from your head coach. There's too many times this season and even in this game where you have an opportunity, your bunch formations, your routes are ran all together, basically. Like, it's a very odd and somewhat vanilla scheme from Sean Payton. So again, it's either one of three things. Sean Payton forgot how to coach, the Broncos don't have enough Sean Payton guys, or the Broncos are tanking on purpose and they didn't tank today because players aren't going to tank. Coaches may want something different. But you won today. But what did you learn today? And I've been accused of this, but I've said this before. You either win or you learn. And when you learn, you win. Well, you won, but did you learn? Can you win twice? I mean, I know you won in the scoreboard in the column. There'll be a W there. But can you win twice? Can you learn? Because what did we really learn about this Broncos team? Hey, they can beat a bad team. Hey, Alex Singleton could miss a tackle. hey, Pat Surtain can get a pick that I don't call a pick in the end zone. I honestly thought it was an interception in the end zone, tied up there. Was it Reed or Dobbs, whoever? Anyway, like, yeah, yeah. How do you feel? Reaction from the chat room. That one guy, Jay. Hey, about that one guy, Jay. I feel great. Feels great to see a W. Right, right. Tyler says we're stuck now. Yeah, and that's the thing. Trades will still happen, perhaps of players that showed a bunch of heart out there. A win is a win. HCTG 85, a win is a win. And then Donald says they're going to win enough to get out of the quarterback lottery. Well, they were in it today, and now they're not in it. If you talk about the top two, and I know, people asking me about Penix or Shedeur Sanders or whoever. It's like, okay, let me get my mind more around that before we start talking about alternatives that aren't Drake May or Caleb Williams. And in fact, unless it's really Shedeur right now, if you're sitting there at number 10 or 12, whatever your draft pick is, with 6 offensive tackles, left tackles in this first round, and then that was an early swipe. I might get more, might chisel it a little bit. But I might be prompted to go offensive line because you win and lose in the trenches. It's not just cliche. That's what happens. Gabe has a sentiment here that I think a lot of people have. I love winning. Who cares? Because the draft is the future. The draft can always be adjusted. The Chiefs didn't have number 1 overall when they drafted Pat Mahomes. What was that, 10? They didn't have 10. They had 26. They moved up 16 spots. The Bills didn't have number 1 overall when they got Josh Allen. So while Caleb Williams is the truth and Drake May is the truth, and there are 2 can't miss quarterbacks, it's also like there's more randomness ahead in terms of like, well, what if everyone else starts losing or whatever? So it's like, okay, take care of business with what's in front of you. I agree with that. So that's again why today I'm conflicted, because I know how I felt. I don't agree with tanking. I don't like the idea of tanking. I don't like even talking about tanking. So I know how I've felt for years, for decades, because I'm old. But like in looking at this team and knowing there's a lack of Sean Payton talent, bottom line, there is a lack of Sean Payton approved players. And I think that's really where the hangups come from. And plus, again, I don't think that Sean Payton trusts Russell Wilson. They're never going to tell you that. Both of them are going to give you the PR, 101. I love Russ. Russ does a great job. And whatever, like coach might be a little more, get him a couple lattes or maybe Mountain Dew Zeros. Like maybe give coach some caffeine and he'll tell you the truth about Russell Wilson. But just from a film standpoint, they're not running the Sean Payton offense. And Russell Wilson can't do what Sean Payton wants him to do. Not as of yet. There you go. That's the way you go. Now, that guy Jay says, don't watch if you want to tank. You're not a real fan. Well, that's a conversation. I don't know if this is the right show for that because it's a post-game show. But, like, what constitutes a real fan, right? Because I'm a bandwagon fan. Like, no one says that. But then the fans that are like, I suffered for years with this team. Okay. Is that a badge of honor? My best friend is a Bills fan. God bless him, Biggie. If you're watching, what's up? But he's been a Bills fan from the 90s, from the heyday of the K-Gun and Thurman Thomas and all that kind of stuff. And then he was a fan through the J.P. Lozman era and all the terribleness that has followed. So it's like, okay, is there a point of pride in sticking with the team and like your heart and your emotions and your love when they're down and they suck and they're terrible? Because the Broncos are down, they suck, and they're terrible. They beat Green Bay today. Big deal. Green Bay sucks. The Broncos aren't much better. So, like, what constitutes that? I'm open for the conversation because, again, I don't like the idea of tanking. I don't like the thoughts of tanking. Now, for that guy Jay or anyone else watching, everyone knows I'm not a Broncos fan. Some people lose their mind when I say that, but whatever. You'll be all right. I'll be all right. But it's like, what is being the right kind of fan? Maybe not a real fan, because if you're a fan, you're a fan. But are you a real fan? Right? Well, should a real fan be rooting for their team to get a franchise quarterback that they clearly don't have in Russell Wilson? Right? Is that a real fan? Is a real fan not excited or rooting for them to lose? Okay. Because if you're a fan, you should not be rooting for your team to lose. But if you are understanding that to put yourself in the best position to get a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, that's what's best for this franchise. A win against Green Bay on October 22nd of 2023. How many of y'all will remember this? Seriously. As the Broncos continue on, will you remember the way that you felt when they beat a bad Packers team at home? Will you remember it? Probably not. Probably not. Maybe you will, and you've got a great memory and you can remember everything. Like, remember Chewbacca? Like, yeah, okay, so maybe that's it. But if you went through this season, and again, you're not rooting for them to lose because that doesn't really mean you're a fan. But if you're a fan that understands you have to be in better position to get the best draft pick you possibly can because there's 2 franchise quarterbacks this year, maybe more. See what happens with Shedeur. But anyway, knowing that you could get one of those guys that you've never had before. I mean, obviously John Elway, but you had to make that trade. Like, you haven't drafted that number 1 pick, Peyton Manning. That was a transaction. That was a free agent transaction. Like, you've never drafted that guy with that premium pick. Got to slow down when I say that. So what does constitute a fan? I think it's fascinating. I don't have the answer. I have my opinion, but what's your answer? Show up in the chat room and let me know. And man, Lawrence says, let's get another lousy draft pick. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you could draft some bum. You could draft, especially if George Payton is running your draft. Like, hey, we got a top 10 pick, and you could draft a bust. Like, yes, that's possible. It's possible with Caleb Williams and Drake May. So, yeah, again, get the win now. What did you learn? What did you build on? Good to have Baron Browning back, not to have the penalties from Baron Browning. So that good to have PJ Locke back, obviously making that play at the end of the game. But what did you learn? Andy's tired of pointless winning. Joey Harrington? He says, ugh. I'm sure he's gotten that a lot. It's a football show, everybody. Human person says, screw it, let's win. There you go. Zach, most pointless team win in team history. Yeah. And then why win now? This changes nothing for my guy, Nate. So Nate, appreciate you, man. Thanks all for chiming in here, except for that one guy who's a big jerk. Anyway, Kareem got to watch his hits. Coco, I agree with you, man. Like, when you have that reputation, you have to know your reputation going in. I don't think Kareem should have been thrown out of the game. And again, I didn't know that officials could make it a collective because it seemed like that's what it was. What was it? The Jacoby Myers hit? Like, that was a much more devastating, like, borderline hit. Whatever. It's football. It's a big hit. We love the violence, whatever. Like, this one today, that's not enough to get you thrown out of the game. But if it's a collection, if they're allowed to do that, or I guess officials are allowed to do whatever they want to do, if it's that collection, then perhaps, yeah, they can throw him out, I guess. But as Coco says, Kareem's got to watch his hits. Like, you've just got to put your aim point lower. I think Dave Logan said that on the broadcast. That was when I was driving home. And then I watched, caught up on the DVR when I got back to the house. So there you go. Matthew says, still a bad team. Yep. Just catching up the chat room. By the way, you guys are killing it in the chat room, by the way. So thank you for that. Joe says goodbye. Mayor Williams won't be there at 4. Yeah, those guys are 1 and 2. There you go. Russ is gone after this year. Peyton is not an idiot. And Gabe, that's where I agree with you. Like, Sean Payton knows what he's doing, but what he's doing is different than what I thought he would do. I thought they would push for the playoffs this year. And again, maybe I'm the dumbest guy on the planet or whatever. Like, no, I just figured Sean Payton with Russell Wilson would mean playoff push, would mean they could do that. And, well, that's not exactly what they're doing. So how do you feel about that? Now, Jeffrey, this is growing stronger as well. Rather have Drake May over Caleb Williams. I get that. You're not getting either one now that you won. And I think Sherry puts it really good. I'll quote Big Mama's house. Oh, Sherry. It all depends how they do against the Chiefs. Now, I don't want to get crazy. People have accused me of being crazy before. People have accused me or really like my post-game shows where I lose my mind. So I hope I'm not boring you today when I'm just kind of talking about the game, talking about the big picture, because the game is one, it was a bad game. Two really terrible teams. So it wasn't like entertaining football. We didn't learn a whole lot. So again, I apologize because most of the time on post-game shows, I like to stick with what happened in the game, kind of stuck on big picture stuff. But let's go with what Sherry says here. And again, I don't want to sound crazy, but if the defense has made improvements and you have improved, Kansas City held them 1 touchdown, right? And then you get the big pick and you hold them under 20, like you get the win. Here you go against the Packers. Okay, that creates momentum. One is a trend. Well, 2 games, this defense has looked a little bit better. What do you do next week against Kansas City? Not to turn this game review into a game preview, but what do you do next week against the Chiefs? Like, how do you show up? Do you get waxed? If you get waxed, then I'm really going to be more upset about this win. Not that I'm upset now, because again, it's conflicting. It's like, oh, you won. Yay. I guess. I don't know. You tell me. You tell me, how do you feel from this win? But if you compete against Kansas City, if you beat Kansas City, now how are you feeling? Like, wait a second. Because the early season stumbles, and that was the exact wrong time to do it, especially when you take a look at the rest of the schedule. I know Detroit got waxed today, whatever, but like you take a look at the rest of the schedule and you go, should have won those early games, because then things got a little rough late, but you could say, man, but they were right there and pushing for the playoffs. But if you beat Kansas City and you go into your bye and you're on a 2-game win streak, your defenses look good for 3 games, even though the first Kansas City game you lost on the Thursday night. But like, let's fast forward this thing. Like, what does that look like? Are we starting to see, and here's where the problem for me always comes back to Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, that relationship. I don't think Wilson is the problem per se, but I think Sean Payton wants to do things differently from Russ. And so there's a philosophical difference. And to Russ's credit, Russ is doing what he can with what the coach is giving him. And that's, Russ is a, yes, sir, no, sir type of guy. But also the problem is Sean Payton's not doing what he wants to do. And Russ can't do what Sean Payton wants to do. So Russ is doing what he is allowed, and he's not being allowed to do much. And that's why you get these vanilla schemes. If I see another screen pass, we went from Pat Shurmur, who didn't know screen passes existed in football, to Sean Payton. I believe they've got the most screens in the league. Did I hear that correctly during the broadcast? I could always look it up. Pro Football Reference, everybody. But like, okay, so we've gone from they don't know what screens are to that's all they run is screens. It's a little frustrating, right? And I'm sure it's frustrating for Russell Wilson. He's never going to say anything because all he's going to do is say everything's great and he's got a list and he's checking it twice. Is Russell Wilson Santa Claus? Like, seriously, he does his list during the press conference. Like, I think the whole offensive line is good. I think all my tight ends are good. Okay, Russ, everybody's good, Russ. Okay, everybody's great. Lawrence says we could draft the fullback over franchise quarterback now. And then Roport, yeah, every time Sutton made a catch, I was like, yeah, oh. It was like 2. Again, I'm of 2 emotions today. Yay, oh. Sutton cut, yay, oh God. Does that mean they're going to trade him? Does that mean they're going to, I mean, they kind of have to, and I love Court. I'm friendly with Court. I can't call Court a friend. It's not like going bowling with CJ Anderson or whatever, but like, I'm friendly with Cortland. I appreciate Cortland's heart. I think he's making too much, but I always applaud players that go get their money. So again, conflicted. It's like you're paying him like a number 1. He's not really a number 1, but he does this game, and you're like, man, someone's going to want him now. Now, you're not getting much of anything, okay? Before we get all Twitter painted, it'll be like Gary V shopping at a garage sale. I'll give you 25 cents for this. That's my Gary V impression, by the way. If you trade Jerry Jeudy, it's going to be like a 4th round pick. If you trade Cortland Sutton, it's going to be like a 5th or 6th round pick. That's it. If you trade Justin Simmons, I would expect more, somewhere in the 2nd round range, 2nd and a 5th, 3rd and a 4th, something like that. If you dare trade Pat Surtain, that's got to be 2 firsts. So you do have some players with some value, but Jerry Jeudy doesn't have much value. And unfortunately, Cortland Sutton doesn't either. Okay. And that's just the way it is. But every time I saw Court make a play, I was like, yay. Oh, damn it. Damn it. Ha. And that guy, Jay, keeps coming with it. Keep coming with it, Jay. We don't need a tank season just to get an overrated quarterback in the top 5, unless the guys that can't miss prospect. Like, and that's the thing. And that's where the debate lies, right? Some people, and I'm not putting words in Jay's mouth there, but let's say you're Mike Evans and you're sitting there in your mom jeans up on Green Mountain and you got the 5 head and you're shining up your golf shoes or whatever, although he plays softball. Anyway, you're Mike Evans and you think the draft is a total crapshoot. Then yeah, you probably want to win and don't, forget them picks and F those draft picks and F that draft position, like all these sorts of things. Sorry to anybody I'm offending, but like, forget it all, F it all. That's what you're saying when it comes to the draft. I'm the opposite of that. And the main problem and why you don't have enough talent on this team is because you drafted poorly. Could you draft better? Who is running your draft? Like right now, we don't know. I don't think it's going to be George Paton. Kind of hope it isn't for the Broncos' sake. But like right now, you have the number 2 pick. Yeah, but if George Paton's making it, I mean, can he mess up on Caleb Williams or Drake May? Could he possibly mess up on that? I mean, the guy he came up under starts saying like Caleb was better than John Elway, which I do not agree with whatsoever. It was better than Peyton Manning. If you want to say Caleb Williams is better than Trevor Lawrence, I would listen to that. Okay. If you want to say he's better than Bryce Young, I would listen to that, right? He would go above, if he was in the same draft class as Trevor Lawrence, he'd go above Trevor Lawrence. Okay. Yeah, I could get that. Although it would be a little bit closer. I'm a larger fan of Trevor than others. Bryce Young, sure, CJ Stroud, whatever, 1-2. But when you're bringing up names like Peyton Manning, and this is Rick Spielman, this is, George Payton's like guru, guy, mentor that he learned from, that is saying like, oh, he's better than Peyton Manning. That's not true. And he's better than John Elway. That's not true. When those guys came out, they're just different levels. Andrew Luck was on that level. Very few quarterbacks get to that level. I do believe Caleb Williams and Drake May are there. They're pretty damn close. Complications come when you say like a Joe Burrow, right? If they were in the same class as Joe Burrow, let's calm down on that a little bit. So I think it's, again, and maybe Jay, you're like a super big fan of the draft and you're just like, let's get this win, whatever. I don't know your opinion, but I know there's different opinions, varying opinions when it comes to the NFL draft. And like, I want all the picks. I want the top picks, or like, F them picks. Forget it. I don't need that. It's a draft. It's a crapshoot, whatever. No, it's a evaluation, especially that high. You're going to be that high in the draft. You better be sure. You better not miss. And there you go. Let's see. Lance is talking about Kareem Jackson. Yeah, Kareem Jackson. There you go. David says something. This is a hollow win. Now, and Soup is like, happy we won. I want to go back to this. And then Cody's like, I'm here for a win every week. Okay, cool. And Vicky says, it's not in me to cheer against the Broncos after 45 years. Vicky, I get that. I understand that. That makes a lot of sense to me. David's saying this is a hollow win. This is meta. This is multi-leveled, what David just said here. Because you could look at it big picture and say it was a hollow win because it doesn't matter because the season's lost anyway, and you're not going anywhere with Russell Wilson. Sorry, you're just not. Sean Payton doesn't trust him. It's not my opinion of Russell Wilson because I have a higher opinion of Russell Wilson than Sean Payton does. It's what we're seeing on film. Like, Sean Payton does not trust Russell Wilson. This is not the Sean Payton offense. Okay? When Sean Payton gets his quarterback, and it's not Jarrett Stidham either. Okay? Stop. Enough, buddy. Enough. When Sean Payton gets his quarterback, and you're going to see all this brilliance and this glamour and this glitz and this production and this innovation, I don't want anyone to say like, wow, Sean Payton, look, no. Sean's not doing what Sean wants to do. Sean is dealing with Russell Wilson because of a bad trade from his GM that he's probably going to replace. Okay? And I think Russ could do a little bit more from what Russ is being asked to do when guys are schemed open. Russ is not seeing him, or the damn batted passes at the line. Like, Sean will dial it up once in a while. Russ won't hit it. So you have a disconnect there. So a hollow win in a meta picture because, like, okay, you won, and what does that mean? You hurt your draft stock. Um, like, but I think it's also more for this year as well. Because again, you either win or you learn, and when you learn, you win. So the Broncos won, but did they learn? And when David says it's a hollow win, I think it's hollow from the big picture, but I think it's also hollow from just this season. What did you learn? Like, did you see anything new from the Broncos today? If you did, please let me know. Please let me know in the chat room. If you learned from today something new about the Broncos, then let me know in the chat room. Okay? Because for me, in watching this team, I didn't. Again, Jaleel McLaughlin, 9 yards a carry. Yeah, okay, yeah. Marvin Mims barely plays. Okay, yeah. Adam Troutman can't be relied on as any sort of weapon because he's not. Okay, yeah. Surtain's really good. Should add that pick in the end zone. Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of like just nod your head type of events in this game, not like revelation or somebody's coming on or, anything like that. Again, the Baron Browning stuff's interesting. Penalties notwithstanding, it's good to see Baron out there. I think Baron, if we talk about all the players that have like elite upside from pass rushing standpoint, I think Baron Browning is that guy. He's got to stay healthy. Got to stay healthy because Cooper's made the step over him. Nick Benito's made the step. Barron's tougher against the run than Nick is. But if we talk about like superstar potential pass rusher, don't mess with this guy. He is the flipping man. Eventually, that could be Baron Browning. And again, could totally be wrong. Maybe it's Cooper. Maybe it's Benito. I still like Thomas and Kuhn. Hell, I like Marcus Haynes. So they've got some young pass rushers on this team I enjoy. But I think it was hollow because unless y'all can tell me something, I might have missed something. Again, I was up in Broomfield at Twin Peaks. I was driving home. I'm catching up on DVR, getting ready for the show. So like I might have missed something that maybe you saw differently. Masiek says this victory is bittersweet. Yeah. I could see how that is seen as well. Carlito says horrible win. It feels weird, doesn't it? It feels weird. And, and here I agree with Gabe again. Like, I can't root for a loss, even if I know it's better. Like, I can't root for tanking, even though I know it's better. I can talk about it. I can ask you what you all think, but I personally can't be like, yeah, forget them wins. I'm saying a lot of F words today. Sorry, don't fire me. But like, forget them wins. Forget them. That's what I mean. Like, I can't really do that. Or did Marvin Mims? Mims did play, but boy, you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell. Holy diver. Double duty. Listen to Dave. What's up? What's up, dude? Nate's congratulations. You barely beat a garbage team. Yeah. Enigma going to the Super Bowl. And right after Akshay said that. We're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah. And then here you go. 0 targets or 0 catches, 1 target for Mims. Yeah. So how do you do, Broncos country? How do you feel? Surtain did get robbed in this one. And yeah, no 100-yard rushers because they're playing RBBC. Should they be? Should it just be Javante's show with a dash of Jaleel? They're not going to use Jaleel more. Okay, unfortunately. And there are things in practice that we see that are different from what you see on Sunday. A lot of things are different. And that's why the Sunday stuff, like the film, it's weird. And I did not have it on my bingo card. Like Sean Payton's not running Sean Payton's offense. And I feel very confident in saying that and knowing Sean Payton and his offense. So Cody brings up something from my man Bird. Zach By's nickname is Bird. It's a Larry Bird type thing. I'm about to do the Larry Bird, as Mr. By says. 2 things can be true at the same time. Love the win, but also emotionally ready for the teardown this offseason. That's incredibly fair. Cody, and I'm sure my man ZB, I either call him ZB or Bird. Bird's like his personal nickname for his friends. I'm one of his friends. Thank goodness. He's a good dude. He's a really, really good man. And I think has changed the game in Denver sports radio. I've told Zach that, and I have no issue saying it on these airwaves. I said, Zach, before Zach got here, none of us teased at all into break. Like, there's a player that the Broncos are completely ignoring and you won't believe who. I'll tell you next. Like, that's a tease. Zach's the one that started doing that, whether it was his direction from on high or whether it was just him. Like, before that in Denver sports radio, and I've been on air for 20 years, we'd just be like, coming up next on 104.3 The Fan. There's a difference. So Zach's changed the game. He's changed the game. I'm super, super proud of my dude. And again, a really good man. Like a really good man. I'm a scoundrel. Zach By is a really, really good man. So there you go. Chris saying get a haircut. I've heard it before. Chris, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Everyone will be fine. I never thought that as a man, and I've had long hair before, but it was just on the top. My sides and back were shaved. I never thought it would be so offensive to so many people in 2023 that a man growing out his hair would be like, get a haircut, get a job, loser. Like, what? It's 2023. Seriously? With so much wrong in the world today, we're going to be worried about a man's hair. Priorities, everybody. Joe saying here, when it's good, it came at a cost. Sigh. Daniel with an interesting thought. Sean Payton saved his job. I think Sean Payton is the safest of safe coaches in the league because the Walton Penner Group trusts him with everything, with like everything. And if you're going to take that route, I'm okay with that, but it had better work. To sound like Grand Moff Tarkin. This had better work. Like Sean Payton, give Sean Payton all the power, but it had better work. But at least if it doesn't, you know who to blame. Who to blame. And that's why it's all on Sean Payton's shoulders. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with more responsibility being put on his shoulders. Get rid of Vance Joseph, the offseason or whatever. The defense they are improving. We have 2 games now. 1 win, 1 loss. It comes down to that Kansas City game, and we shall see. I've talked about that before, but like, move on from George Payton, move on from Vance Joseph, move on from Russell Wilson. Put all those eggs more on Sean Payton in his basket, and then hope that basket makes it. Hope that that gets it done. So let's make it 2. And here's the thing with Sherry. Like, again, I'm sick of losing. It's 1 game, multiple games. So yeah, Lurker Troy says win all games. Broncos don't tank, they reload. And that's another conversation that I think could be very interesting. Lurker Troy, maybe not on this show, because again, this is a post-game show, even though I'm going more large, big picture. Is the reload what they did with Elway, and it didn't work. An absolute strip it down to the studs rebuild, I think, is what this team needs. And Sean Payton is the guy to do that with. So reload means like you're just kind of scraping some of the stuff off the top or the bottom, I should say, and then adding some more. I think it needs to be like down to your rookies and a small handful of veterans, very small handful. Who's your core guys? Who's your cornerstone guys? Pat Surtain's a cornerstone guy. Who else? Who else? Because you paid him, Zach Allen doesn't mean he is. He hasn't played real well this year. But like, who are your cornerstone guys? Pat Surtain, and I mean, it'll be Mike McGlinchey, but again, that's just because you paid him. It's not because that's what he is. And I think McGlinchey is probably hurt. That's just a guess. Because McGlinchey's not this bad. He's not the greatest right tackle of all time. He definitely had a problem with holding. He's got a problem with penalties this year. But his game just seems a little bit off. I don't know if it's father time. I don't think it is. I think it might be one of those end of the season, like, oh, by the way, I'm getting ankle surgery. Like that type of thing. Could be wrong. Could totally be wrong. But like, okay, reload. Lurker Troy, that's what they've been doing. That's how you get here. We just reload, just keep going. Not an actual tear it down, rebuild, everything new. Start anew. Yeah, Marcos was what I agree with here. Time to trade no matter what. VinQ with something that I haven't talked about yet. False hope win, to be honest. TBH. Yeah. Um, so there's that. VJ was awful in the second half. VJ is awful pretty much all the time. Um, Roport saying the linebackers are sus, which I can read, but I can't say myself because I'm old. So I can't say stuff like lit or fire or sus or cap because then that just sounds stupid. And if you say it, that's fine. I could read it, that's fine, but I can't say it myself. Man, those Colts jerseys were fire today. See, again, I sound stupid, right? Some people would say I sound that way anyway. You'll be all right. I'll be all right. Everyone's okay. Um, Build a winning culture. See that guy Jay coming back. Build a winning culture. I'm not sure if these are the players to build a winning culture with. They don't know how to win. And that's all of them. Every single one of them. You can talk about college, like Jerry Jeudy won a lot in college. Okay, whatever. Like, and maybe you could change it, but you also have established veterans. What did Garrett Bowles say a couple weeks ago? Man, all I do here is lose. All I've done here is lose. Yeah. What does that say? So again, that guy Jay with the talking points, but it's like, what's the reality of it? You can build a winning culture, but if it's with guys that all they've done is lose, you beat Green Bay today. Great. Green Bay's terrible. Again, if you want me to gloss it up and be like, this is great, guys, and they can make it, they can do it, they got a chance. If you want that, one, I'm not going to do it. Two, there's other options for you out there. If you just want someone to blow smoke up your ass and be like, they got it, guys, everything's great. And I'm not going to be negative Nelly. I refuse to be negative Nelly because I don't think that's honest either. Seek the truth and speak the truth. And the truth isn't out there to make you feel good. You're a fan and you're go Broncos, let's do it. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But the truth isn't meant to make you feel good all the time. And the truth of the matter is like this was a hollow win. Forget them picks, forget the draft. Like, okay, if that's your opinion, that's fine. But what did you learn today? Are they building a winning culture with players that have lost their entire careers? Good players too. I think Garrett's better than even I would give him credit for. Justin Simmons is a good player, but he hasn't won, you know? So again, like I get what you're saying about building the culture because there are others, and I've said this I think it was on Orange and Blue Today this week, where I was like, there's other teams that think the Broncos have a corrupt locker room. I don't believe that. I'm in that locker room multiple times a week. I don't think it's corrupt. And I've seen it when it's corrupt. I don't get that feeling this time. There was an executive in another sport that said the locker room is toxic. Again, it's in a different sport, and the guy was popping off about the Broncos, which made me go, nah, whatever. I mean, I'll listen. Listen to all executives, even if it is in different sports. But just like, how do you build that winning culture with guys that have done nothing but lose their entire careers? This isn't the Bad News Bears, right? This isn't a Hollywood. They could turn it around. Like, sometimes you cut and go. Cut your losses and go. Trade your guys away and go. But again, like Mike here, it's awful nice to get a win. Yeah, it does feel good. When are they going to throw to Mims again? Jody, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. And Gabe with the perfect one here. K-Jack is a real football player. It's just the wrong era. The wrong era. Lance loves the locks. Thank you, Lance. I appreciate that. Anyway, I don't like talking about my hair. I don't like talking about my flair. I don't like talking about my hair because, again, I think it's just dumb. Cut your hair. Okay, whatever. K-Jack's ejection was trash. Soup, 1000% correct. Like, that was garbage for them to do that. Locke did look dynamic out there. And again, Locke makes that play to pick off the pass and end the game. It was going to be incomplete anyway. It's Jordan Love. Of course, it's going to be incomplete. But, like, no, man. No, I think PJ Locke makes that play when Kareem Jackson would not do that. Anyway, Vicky, they scored more than 16. And then RJ with what I thought, are they showcasing Sutton for a trade? Man, I hope not. I mean, I guess I'm conflicted. One, I think they should because you're going to get something for him. Not much. But you got to clear room for Marvin Mims. You got to clear room for Brandon Johnson. And what would make me mad, RJ, is if they trade Cortland Sutton and do not trade Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy does not need to be here. I'm not going to say he doesn't want to be here, but he doesn't need to be here. More Brandon Johnson, please. More Marvin Mims, please. I say it every week. Overall team played well. Chris, good job. Soup again. A dub is a dub, and I will take it. Roport loves me. I love you too. Lawrence is pissed. Yeah, I could say that. I could say that. This one's good. Gabe again. Gabe, is this actually me tweeting or chatting, but I'm a different username? This is my burner account. Is Gabe Rocks my burner account? Because, yes, safety play is an art, and it's kind of a lost art, especially because of the rules today. Rules that are only going to change because the league isn't scoring as much. Ambivalent, Mark. I appreciate that. Ambivalent. Right. Time for the Astros game. Time for the post-game show. And then I'll be doing an NFL recap show here in just a little bit. But anyway. Oh, bench Russ now. Well, his coach doesn't trust him. We'll see. I think this Kansas City game is setting up to be even larger than it normally would be. Listen, you lose today against Green Bay. Okay. You know, you're waving the white flag. You're screaming uncle, whatever you want to say. But I mean, the Kansas City game takes on a different narrative now because of the win today. So did you learn something there? I guess, yeah, that might be the case. Jeudy still has to go. Totally agreed, Richard. And then Vicky's agreed, Cecil, about Jeudy, no sunk cost fallacy. And then Young Zell, I can never hope for my team to lose. Always play to win and let the chips fall where they fall. Good win today, Broncos country. There you go. And I think that's a wise way to do it. You know, it's a wise way to look at things. Jeudy looked like he ruptured a gonads. That's always embarrassing when you get hit in the onions and then you got to go to the sidelines, or you're on the sidelines when you're hitting the onions, and it's just like everybody under the sun knows, especially whoever the color commentator was, like, he got hit in the groin. Like, yeah, he got a shot in the nuts, so he's got to take a seat for a little bit. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, wear a cup, something. Anyway, didn't want them to lose. Didn't care if they win. Brent. Okay, interesting. And Tom, don't call yourself a fan if you're rooting for the Broncos to lose. Again, that's an interesting conversation. One, not necessarily for the show, even though I spent some time talking about it. Anyway, that's about a wrap for today. I'm still getting to more of your comments though. Ty, like, what the hell? What are we doing? Soup says the defense playing much better. They're playing much simpler. One of the terms this entire week when I talked to Alex Singleton, when I talked to Nick Benito, when I talked to Pat Surtain this week, it was all about simplifying things. Like, just play what you're playing. Everyone play the same thing. So, and then Chris with better than complaining about a loss. I mean, I feel better, Chris. The last 3 weeks, I've been physically ill from doing this show. Today, I don't feel physically ill. So, there you go. Victory lap, beat the Chiefs. Soup, beat the Chiefs. There you go. And then Roport, beat the Chiefs. Vin says the win feels meh. I get it. Yep. I get it. Totally get it. Need to trade Jeudy. Yep. Need to trade Jeudy. All right. There we go. I think that's about a wrap. What do you think about Russ's pocket? It's non-existent. Like, Russ was seeing some ghosts in the preseason, and there's been times when his mind's been calmed down. But for the most part, it really isn't existent. And that's one of the reasons why Sean Payton can't run what he wants to run. I tweeted out a video about it, about Sean Payton neutering Russell Wilson. So look at my Twitter, I guess, and then look at that video. And then I think Football did a video on it as well. So yeah, this is not the Sean Payton offense. And I believe that Sean Payton does not trust his quarterback. Could totally be wrong, but I don't see Sean Payton plays. I don't see sale concepts. I don't see Sean Payton staples that even he ran with Jameis Winston. So is Jameis Winston a better fit for Sean Payton's offense than Russell Wilson is? The answer is yes. And again, that was not on my bingo card. Google, what do you think about Caleb after this week? Yeah, Utah has challenged him for sure. And watching that game, I wasn't necessarily shocked with some of the coverages and how Caleb reacted to him. I guess I was disappointed that he hasn't learned by now. Like, you can go out there and be great, but you've got to be great all the time, not just when you're playing basic defenses. So there you go. Oh, some people going after that awful person on Facebook. Thank you for having my back. That's usually how it goes. I told my best friend Biggie. Now a couple times I've mentioned Biggie, but he used to be like, that one guy on Facebook said this about you, and then he'd like jump in. I'm like, no, don't do that, man. It's not worth your time. But I appreciate the support. I appreciate everyone out there. And you won. Can you win against Kansas City? And I'm not going to say that it has to mean that or whatever. Again, I'm weirded out. It's confusing. But it's like, if you can make this back-to-back wins before the bye, now we're talking about something. If you can't, then what did this win really get you? Okay, I'll leave you with that question. Appreciate you all. Check out denversports.com. Sign up for that Denver Sports Daily. It's our free daily newsletter. You can get it for free. All the top sports news. That's Avs. That's Nuggets. When I was at Twin Peaks in Broomfield, and I did the giveaway for Nuggets tickets, by the way, like, people were super excited, especially when I got to say, and I get in chills just saying this, because honestly, I never thought, as someone who grew up in Colorado, I never thought I'd be able to say this. When I said, your world champion Denver Nuggets. Feels good. How do you feel, Broncos country? Let us know. Follow us on all the socials. We are denversports.com. I am Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty.